Hey everybody, James from On Type here, and today we're talking about the top 5 ways you can be happier as an INTJ. So let's get into it. So let's look at some of the kind of ways that you can be happier as an INTJ. Number one of these kind of tips is to focus on progression. INTJs are progression types. They get a lot of satisfaction from knowing they're moving forward because they have NI hero as well. And so they really want to know that they're progressing, that they're moving towards a desirable future, something that will be better in the future. And so one way they can do that is setting attainable goals. One thing that NI heroes can struggle with, me definitely, is setting goals that are too ambitious. Setting goals like, oh, in 10 years I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to win this championship, I'm going to, do this amazing thing, and this long-term goal. And that can be good, but really what's really important to get to those long-term goals is to set attainable goals, set small goals in days, in weeks, months, and those smaller time scales. So saying, today I'm going to work out versus, in 10 years I'm going to be in the best shape of anyone ever. You don't want to go too big, you don't want to go too ambitious. You want to make sure you're setting attainable goals, small little goals where you can see your progress, you can see that you're improving, you can see you're going towards your desirable future, and that's really important. Another thing you can do is kind of track your progress. Make sure you're remembering, because INTJs do have SI demon. They might forget their progress. They might remember the past very negatively. And it's important to learn from your past and the positive things you were doing in the past as well, not just remembering the negatives with that kind of SI demon, remembering all the negatives and having regret. So doing this by tracking progress, making sure maybe you have an app, you chart your progress, whatever that is, you can write it down. But making sure that you can see that you're moving forward, see that you're progressing, and give yourself the motivation to keep going. And of course, avoid burnout. Make sure you're not going too hard in the paint, as they say. Make sure you're not doing anything that is, damaging to your health, going like, oh, I want to work out, for example. I'm going to work out 6 times a day. I want to progress so bad. I don't want to wait. Have the patience, wait. Be willing to wait weeks, months, years. That's how long it takes for many long-term goals to really show any results. And be patient, be willing to do the small things every day and keep that consistency off. That can be very hard for SI Demon because they don't want to wait. They don't want to be patient. They want to get there as quick as possible and do everything they can in their power to get there. But some goals just need time. Most goals need time, even if you're doing everything you can do. So make sure you're not going too hard. Make sure your goals are sustainable and attainable. And as long as they're sustainable and attainable, they're definitely achievable. And that's going to really help with that feeling of progression for an INTJ. So what's another thing they can do? This one's a little bit similar. It's 2 steps forward. It's this kind of ideology of, move forward. Make sure you don't undo your progress. That's another thing that can happen with SI Demon. Don't forget, that maintenance stage, that kind of feeling of just not losing progress is progress in itself over the long term. So if you look at like a long-term graph, you have ups and downs. Depending on how low those downs are, really determines your overall trajectory and your overall results when it comes to, the long term, which is really how life is lived. Even though we think of things in the short term, months, even days, weeks, it's very easy to think that way. Really, progress is made over years and decades. So don't forget that sometimes just not losing progress is progress. Sometimes you might, I'll stick with the workout analogy. It's an easy one. There's tons of different goals you can have, of course. But, you might get injured and you might be like, I want to work out, but I'm injured. And it's like, it's okay to take a rest day and just go like, you know what? I'm not going to lose tons of progress because I know I'll work out when I heal. I'm just going to take the L on this one versus working out more, hurting yourself more, and having that line on your graph go even lower to your progress and really can sink and become this kind of snowball effect. That's just one very particular example, but there's other ways that this can happen. If you feel like your progress is slipping, then you go into maybe a mode of demotivation and not wanting to do it anymore. It's very easy, especially for SI Demon, to kind of re-pick up bad habits, to lose good habits, and to really lose that progress. So don't forget, sometimes you might not make a ton of progress on a day or a week, but if you're not losing progress, you're not, binge eating or hurting yourself or doing anything that's, stupid for your health, that will actually help you progress. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just do nothing on a certain day. Don't give in to your addictions. Don't give in to any of these kind of negative habits that you might have, but just do nothing. And sometimes doing nothing helps you in the long run because your low points, your hard times, the times where things aren't going your way, sometimes doing nothing is, in a way, doing something because you're just not losing any progress. So that's something important to remember as well. Another thing that can help INTJs be really happy is to make a goal to socialize. Make it a goal. Make it part of those plans to socialize and to get out there, because really the key to things like responsibility and true happiness for an INTJ come from their extroverted functions. It's important to know that. It's not something that's talked about a lot in the MBTI community, because MBTI community has a kind of a little bit of a dysfunction when it comes to things like enabling, and into things like, a very hopeless kind of despair mentality of, it's my inferior function, I can't do it, I suck, I should ignore it, I shouldn't be expected to do it. All these things of very hopeless kind of thinking around these issues, when really, if you've ever actually gone past your fears and had courage and achieved the things that you're scared of and faced reality in these kind of situations, you'll see that you're happier than you've ever been, and you're actually way more satisfied and confident and ready for your life and feeling that kind of sense of satisfaction, versus avoiding your fears and kind of sinking into a negative kind of reality. So really, it's important to develop your SC. It might not be fun, it might not be as enjoyable in the beginning, maybe mentally it might not seem desirable, but trust me when I say that, when you're developing those skills, when you're waking up in the morning, you're going to have that satisfaction knowing that you're developing these things that you're kind of scared about. This really helps you learn more, of course, your TE as well, with your TE parent. Helps you learn more, make new connections with others. You won't have to feel like, everyone's abandoned me, there's no one in my life, because you're making new connections. You're finding new people to be loyal to you, new people who respect and care about you, and that will be in your life, and you don't have to worry about, everything's slipping away, people are abandoning me, I'm going to be alone, and then I'm going to go into my SI demon and binge and be addictive. You can stay out of that zone by keeping your social life happy, progressing your social life, and not ignoring it. Because if you ignore something that you want deep down, it's not going to happen, of course, and it's going to lead to resentment, bitterness, and a negative affect, absolutely. And this prevents that loneliness from the SI demon. This prevents that nihilism, that faithlessness in the SI demon where it wants to give up. It can prevent that, and it can keep you optimistic, hopeful, and happy. Another great tip to be happy is to understand mercy, understand that child kind of trickster, understanding of those functions, understanding how those functions work and their orbit. Avoid going too hard on others, of course. FI child wants, of course, to be forgiven, wants to have mercy, wants to be given the benefit of the doubt, but they don't always give it to other people. They don't want to, forgive other people as much as they want to be forgiven. So it's really important to understand the mercy side of it, and to be empathetic and to be caring for others. And when they mess up, when they're feeling a certain way, that you are able to care about that, and it'll be given back to you as a motivation, of course. Not to mention, it's just the morally right thing to do. So avoid going too hard on others. Treat others how you want to be treated, of course, as I said before. And you want people to be happy around you. You don't want to ignore this function in a way where you're upsetting people and people aren't happy around you, and then they end up not wanting to be loyal to you or not wanting you, and feeling like, how did this happen? Why don't people like me? What's going on? Just understand the concept. Understand that people need to have you go easy on them sometimes. They need you to empathize with them and understand what they're going through, and not always give them advice or criticize them. Not everyone needs that at all times. And then I think the final tip here, get comfortable with failure. This is a huge one to being happy long-term for INTJs. INTJs have SE aspirational. It's the fear function. It's the function that the soul predicates on. And it's very, very scary to face, and it's scary to kind of exist even using this function, because it's so apprehensive. But it's really good to understand it and understand why certain things will lead you to be more upset or lead you to be more happy, and what that kind of polarization is. Really, the polarization of the aspirational function is happiness when succeed and complete misery when failed. And so you want to understand that function the most, and understand what leads to success and what leads to failure. And I'm not talking failure as in you try and don't succeed. I'm talking failure as in avoidance. Really, the only way to fail with the aspirational function is to not try, and the only way to succeed with it is to try. And try and try and try again. So failure in general is kind of that one of those axes of the aspirational function, because it is SE, and SE is all about, achieving success within that real world, and it understands that other people will, want to stick around them if they're successful, and will want to abandon them if they fail. And they can be very scared of things like failure and rejection when it comes to that concrete world. Because one thing to want something, it's another thing to try to achieve it in the real world and not achieve it in that concrete world. So that can be kind of a source of fear for INTJs. And they have to understand, failure is not only a part of life, but it's a guarantee. Failure is the most likely outcome in a lot of different situations, especially when you're trying to achieve something very hard, where maybe it's like a top 1, top 10%. Failure is a huge outcome. Failure is often the most likely outcome in many situations, especially if you're learning something at the beginning and you're trying a new skill and you want to be good at it. You're not going to be good at it right away. You're going to fail. You're going to have to try again. And so understanding the process of skill development, understanding how life works, can really help with this kind of feeling of, I'll try again because I understand this isn't mean I'm worthless, or I'm not good, or I'm not smart. This just means that I need to practice. This just means I gotta try again. No big deal, right? I always have to try again. I always have to practice. I always will fail because I'm a human being and that's life. And in life you fail no matter who you are. You can never expect that you'll never fail. And so really having a good relationship with failure and rejection can help you use this function without as much fear. There's really nothing worth doing in life that has no possibility of failure. Most things worth doing in life have a very high possibility of failure. What's great about life is you very, very often get chances to try again and not give up. So when you're faced with that initial failure, you're faced with that rejection, use that as fuel to keep trying and don't let it kind of collapse in on yourself and destroy yourself, because your entire self-worth shouldn't be connected to failure in the moment on one particular thing. It should be connected to, when I'm faced with failure, what is my character? Is my character to give up and self-destruct, or is my character to keep trying and never give up? And when you have that kind of mentality, that kind of fighting mentality, you don't have to worry as much about failure, because you see failure as part of the process, part of that progress, that you know that failure is just one step to success. You understand that it's necessary, it's going to be there, it's objectively a factual experience that everyone has. And by going through it, it doesn't mean anything of yourself. It doesn't mean anything bad. It's just part of the process, part of living. And when you see it, have a better relationship with it, and you understand it, it can help with not being so afraid of it. And yeah, the only way to really overcome failure is to get used to it and never give up. Make sure that you're comfortable with it. Make sure that out of everyone, you failed the most. Because when you failed the most, it means you have the highest chance of succeeding, because a lot of top athletes say this, top performers in any field will say, the only thing I did right is that I failed the most, more than anyone, and I learned from it, and I improved, and I kind of progressed from failure and learning from it. It's not something to be scared of, it's something to encourage, it's something to want, it's something to expect, and it's nothing about you, it's nothing that says you can't do something, it's just one of those steps in a very long staircase of life. So yeah, I hope this kind of helped. I think that's my last tip. Yeah. So I hope this helped explain some different ways to be happy as an INTJ. If you guys want more, or if there's any INTJs, let me know in the comments below on how any of these tips would influence you, or what you think are some tips to be happy as an INTJ. And yeah, so I hope if you guys enjoyed, you subscribe down below, and have a great day.